get it off me. Get off of me. But yeah, that's the situation today. I don't know why I'm wearing it down today, but as we know, it tends to go pretty disastrously. So please ignore me fiddling with my hair compulsively. I always wear it up in a bun, so it's out of my face and space. But today my bun decided that it was going to try and make a break for it. And so I ended up with like all these lumps and stuff. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to wear my hair down. And yeah, let's see how that goes. Do a very, very quick broadcast today on one money step for beginners. So, as you may already know, I'm Raven. Thank you so much for joining. I am the founder of MoneyMind.global. And there we talk about beginners, money, personal finance, starter steps, the 5 pillars of financial stability that are money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills and legacy that make up the foundation of a really healthy and stable money, personal finance, beginner starter base foundation. So if you don't have those 5 in place, then that's an easy checklist to remember, right? It's just the 5 of them that we talk about on MoneyMind.global and here on HAPS and across the other platforms where I live broadcast and stream to Facebook and to Twitter and a few other platforms as well. So whatever platform you're watching on, if you see that I'm responding to comments that you can't see the text of, it's because they're on a different platform. And so if you want to see all the comments, then it will be on haps.tv, and that's where I am broadcasting from. So I love Haps. I love Haps. And on the topic of love, I just wanted to say it has so far been one of those weeks that has been quite challenging, but in a good way. So there have been a few things I've been working on that haven't quite gotten over the line and just taken the next steps. I mentioned yesterday our aircon decided to explode, and then we made this rather ridiculous first timer mistake of ordering Nutrition Kitchen, but ordering it on a Saturday. So then we didn't buy our groceries for the next week as we usually do, and then realized that actually the food was coming the following week. So now we have like no food for the week because we usually have to schedule in when I go to a supermarket because my schedule is just crazy. And so yeah, so yesterday I think I ate just total garbage and ended up getting very low spirited as a result of having no vegetables all day. And so I was like, and then one of my favorite jewelry brands that I love buying from. So I have all these beautiful like crushed ice kind of diamondy type jewelry. And this is actually from just a British like main high street store called Objects, Objekts. And I've been buying from them since I first saw that they actually created this kind of like crushed blue ice little sort of diamond stone. And when they released that, I'd been watching them for a while and I just went and I bought like 5 different things, right? I bought this bigger one. I think it's an Aura or Aurum. I bought the larger one that actually made me realize that I prefer halos. So I have this in like white. I have it in yellow. I think they might have it like in some of these in like pink as well. This is a DOUX. And I had to send my first like return because I accidentally ordered 2 of exactly the same stone. So it's been a nightmare. So on top of my aircon exploding and my foolish mistake with the Nutrition Kitchen where we have no food and feeling a bit low spirited, I have been like trying to get this return sorted out. And because of the situation right now, there's all of the returns to the UK are blocked in the mail. So I couldn't send airmail a return, and I couldn't wait for this ring that I'd ordered to, take like 3 months to get back. And so I was like, I felt like I was going through a breakup with my favorite brand. I was like, I'm never going to be able to buy from them again. This is such a nightmare. I was trying to go back and forth with like the customer service person who was frankly like kind of like doing their job, but not very helpful. And I'm really customer service obsessed, which is why MoneyMind is going to have allocated customer service agents and quite a few of them because I can't. If returns are not easy, free, and immediate, I'm not going to buy from your brand. So this brand is an exception because you have to pay to return the items. But I so love them that I was like, okay, I'll do that. Um, and then it's just been such a nightmare. So finally, I messaged their Instagram custom like on because I've been in touch with them anyways because I keep posting about them online, and they immediately replied on Instagram. So if you ever want to buy from this brand and you have problems, message their Instagram. It's taken me so like 10 emails back and forth trying to say, can you please help? Can you please like offer solutions instead of me having to try and like beg for them, saying, what do I do? What can I do? What is the next step? Good customer service would say, hi, I know your problem. Here are the solutions that, other people in your country have overcome, and here's what they did. So that's what the Instagram customer service did. So if you ever buy from Object Store and you need to make a return, Instagram customer service. Don't go the conventional route and don't make the mistakes that I have made in my life. Don't do it. So they messaged immediately and gave me a solution, gave me a number to call, and now the thing is getting collected and picked up and sent on tomorrow afternoon. So I'm thrilled to have made some little progress. You know when everything is kind of like going wrong and then you finally make like a tiny bit of progress, you're like, yes, my life. So that's really exciting. And then I received all this other exciting information in my email inbox. Now I had to really like sort of meditate and try and get my like grump down this morning because I was like, man, everything's going wrong and I don't know why I'm making these daily mistakes, like, whatever. Um, but it's life. We're always going to make mistakes. We're always going to make little bumbles. And that's just part of picking ourselves up, saying, okay, I'm feeling a bit crunchy, what we call Faustus. Faustus is the name of a grumpy rat that lives in our head. That when we're feeling like, that's that mood. Okay, so Faustus is a total mood. Sorry. And Faustus is when we're just feeling a bit crunchy or grumpy. So when we're trying to go through life, making changes, making good actions, like show up in our day to day life, we'll often wake up grumpy. We'll often wake up feeling like, oh, I can't be bothered, or, oh, I've got to get through this today. And so, what I do on those days is I make sure that I do my morning routine that is set and is always a combination of things that includes having my green shake, meditating, saying prayers, and asking to be guided to help serve the world, how I can best serve the world. Like every morning, every evening, I'm like, please help me serve better and help me serve the audience of Money Mind, and please help me just provide whatever my customers will benefit best from in this mission of financial literacy. So I do that, and it helps me reset and start to get a bit better perspective on, yeah, the aircon's broken and I made a mistake with Nutrition Kitchen. The aircon's getting fixed. Nutrition Kitchen is coming next week, and we already now know that we have to order on a Friday if we want the next week's order to come through in time. Um, and now I've got the great customer service where I'm getting my rings. Yay! So I don't have to break up with this brand. So I was so heartbroken, right? I was like, wait. So things are moving in the right direction. And that's kind of what we want to be doing. So if we're in a money situation on this topic of one tip for beginners in money, if we want to be moving in a certain direction with our money, then what we need to do is often take a different action or a different action step to what we're currently doing. And that can seem really overwhelming. So what do we do when we have been spending money, using money, how we've been using it, and we're not quite sure what to do next to change our mindsets, change our saving habit, change our budgeting, change our investing or our will style, right? Maybe we don't have a will. Maybe we don't invest. Maybe we aren't budgeting. Maybe we don't have savings, or we just have savings but no investments. And so our money is like depreciating. Um, Maybe our money mindsets are lack instead of abundance, or we have fixed instead of growth mindsets. Fixed being there's a finite amount of money and that's all there is and we have to fight for it, or there's only this much, instead of money is just an energy where there's plenty of it out in the world and there's not a piece for me means no piece for you. There really is enough for both of us, and to share that around in the world. So more abundance mindsets. And I have to work on this all the time. I'm in growth process constantly because I started out with really, really fixed mindsets about money. Um, fascinated by how to like grow more into abundance. And I knew, I think quite young, that I wanted to learn how to crack out of my shell and start to grow and explore. Maybe I had that adventure spirit. Maybe I had that adventure feeling that a lot of us have in our lives, where we want to keep going. Like, we're happy with how life is, but then we're like, I want a house, or I want um, a family, or I want things that are different to what I currently have. And we know that that will be part of the process, but sometimes we feel all kind of jumbled up with wanting everything right now at the same time, even though we kind of don't. Like, if we're just starting a new job and we want a family and a house someday, we don't necessarily think, I want a new job, family, and house all immediately right now at the same time. But we can get really impatient thinking those thoughts are kind of like here for us to address right now, whereas really they're along the line. But what we have to do to get to those points is to checklist off the actions that will lead us there. And if we haven't got a head start on our finances, on our beginner's money areas, then we can kind of stall on that journey towards that house, towards feeling more abundance around having a family, towards feeling like, oh, I'm ready for this, or I'm ready to take the next steps towards this. So stability can play a really big part in making decisions around these areas. And as a result, I come up with these two different tips. So it's one tip for each type, right? So one tip for beginner's money, for example, just today, since it's a short broadcast. There are two different types, savers and spenders, in terms of money outgoings, right? And we'll just categorize that clearly into two different types, since we can be a blend, and we often are a blend. So I'm more of a spender, but I do love to save and invest. But more, I love to invest because I have a high risk profile, which we talk about in the Money Mind course. And I go into all of these in a lot more detail in the Money Mind course itself, which is being built now and should be ready when it's ready. I'm not putting a time on it anymore. I'm just like, when it's ready, when it's ready. It's ed tech. And so tech is just going to take as long as it's going to take. So I realized that the spender side of me is the side that's much harder to control than my saver side. My saver side is responsible and wants to do things and likes to make investments and knows that it doesn't want super crazy high risk investments in too disproportionate a way of like balance. It wants balance and risk. I'm sorry, I've got a rabbit climbing my leg. Um, and so because I know this part is quite secure and stable, doesn't have lots of emotions around it, is very methodical and strategic, I know that that's how that probably should be. And I don't have to really worry about that area because it's not sort of like tied with emotions. And emotions are a great trigger to show us where we want to untangle some money mindsets. Because my spender side, if I get stressed, I spend more. If I'm like feeling whatever bored, sometimes I'll spend more. Previously, I was overwhelmed by money. I was like making it, but I was like, I don't know how to manage it. And I was just really like tangled in the emotions around money and spending and managing it. So that area and investing, I was just like, oh no, fine. I'll like just invest, like this. And then time deposits, like it was just so robotic and methodical that I really didn't need to untangle anything around it because I also didn't know anything. So I just said, okay, how do I learn about investing and how do I go into this? Who am I gonna read and research and copy? And I was like, well, Warren Buffett. So I started really just absorbing what Warren Buffett says. Um, and because of that, I started training myself. I was like, oh, he knows. I might as well train myself. If my emotions say this and he says to do that, then I will train myself to do that. And I can't do what he does because I don't have numbers. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a financial industry person or expert. I have dyscalculia, so I never will be, right? So none of this is ever going to be advice. It's all just opinions and my own experience. But I wanted to make sure that I was able to untangle this part for being a spender. So the one tip for spenders that I found was the biggest, most helpful tip, right? Apart from both spenders and savers, if we know roughly which we are more of, most of us will kind of intuit which we're more of. Are we more comfortable saving, or are we more comfortable spending? Like, do we feel joy when we spend and go out and spend as an indulgence to treat ourselves? Or do we just not feel that much of a draw to spend money and feel more reward in seeing our bank account grow, or accumulating, or just not spending, right? Saying, no, I'm not going to spend on that. So are we more of a saver or a spender? And if we're more of a spender, then the one thing that can really make a helpful difference in some of our lives is to start tracking our expenses. So that's the one money tip for beginners. For spenders, tracking your expenses. Okay, the one money tip for beginners for spenders is to start tracking our expenses. And that means writing down every day just, what we're spending on a notepad, on a piece of paper, on our notes on our phone, anywhere, tracking it in an expense app. I use an app called iExpensit, I.xpensit, like, so it's, yeah, but but iExpensit, because you can take photos of things as well. And in doing so and just tracking where we're spending, if we're a spender and we start tracking where the outgoing is going, we start to gain awareness of our outflow. And that starts to bring us more consciousness of choice. Do we want to be spending that much on coffee? Do we want to be spending this much on taxis or dining out? Or maybe we didn't realize that we're just ordering like pizza every day or every few times a week, but it adds up to like a few $100s. It's like, whoa, I didn't realize that when I could have just been I could have I could have just been buying like frozen pizzas and heating them up at home, and it would have equaled like $50, right? And then we start to see, oh gosh, for the same thing, I know it's not the same thing, but like for comparable things, like, do I really care about ordering that pizza when I could really just put it in the oven and save myself like $200? So that type of thinking starts to come into place when we have been tracking our expenses for a few weeks or months. So I started to notice it after a few weeks, because I said, okay, look, I'm so stressed out. I need to just do something, but I don't want anything too big or stressful. I'm going to start small, easy, just writing down, not thinking about it, not drawing any conclusions, just writing down. In one column, we have the outgoing expenses. Then in the next column, we have the tally for the day. Boink, boink, easy peasy. I started to realize that the tally was quite high. And then I started to look at where I was spending quite a lot throughout the day. And it gave me more of an insight. I suddenly started saying, oh, those areas I actually don't care about. Like, why am I even spending there? And that was the one biggest thing that made the first tangible difference to shifting my awareness and mindset, and brought me the most confidence long term, which is why I still budget every day. And I don't use a budget that is really restrictive. I use a 25% budget, which I created for my family's use, which is really quite, it has a structure to aim for, but it's still quite relaxed. Like you put, for example, if you're living somewhere maybe like Hong Kong, you put like 50% or 25% on your necessities, including your house, car, utilities, everything. Then you put 25% on saving and investing and 25% on spending. So that kind of, weighting. And if you are 60%, then you just, on the necessities, then you just adjust those 25%. But it's just for you to kind of work with as a quartering, so that you can see, roughly here's the idea, and I can kind of adjust them to my needs. It's not a lot of different numbers, like the 30, 50, 20 budget. That's still a very great starter budget. But this one you can become quite modular. So if you're a spender, you can do the 50, 30, 20. If you're a saver and you're already, if you're a spender, you can do the, say, 50%, 25, 25, as I just mentioned. Or if you already have a lot of savings and you aren't spending that much on, say, rent and necessities, you could do 25% on rent and necessities, 50% saving, 25% saving, 25% investing, and then 25% spending. Or you could do even more aggressive or different approaches. Like maybe you'd want to put 50% saving and investing, and then spending 25, and then rental necessities 25 as well. So you can actually start modularly shifting it around roughly, you know. So if you're like a super saver, then, well, you'll know all this already. So this course isn't as much for like super savers who are totally on top of everything. But this kind of modular approach is just worth getting an eyes on the pillars of the basics of the foundation. And so that's just something that we can use if it's helpful to us. If it doesn't apply or it's not relevant, then it's not relevant, and it doesn't need to be applied in our life. You know, we only need to find, and this is a great thing, right? We only need to find what's relevant for us and what works for us. That's it. That's all. So what we often find is we're overloaded by all this information out in the world, when really all we need is what's going to work and what we're going to do and what will actually make a difference in our lives. That's what we're looking for. So I have these 5 pillars: money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills, and legacy. And the reason why they're like that is because they're there for the basic financial stability. And once we have all these parts in place, it's easy enough to be able to say, okay, I now feel more confident to take the next steps. That's where I want people to get to. So for this one money step for beginners with the spenders, it would be to track expenses. If we're a saver though, and we want to do something that is often problematic for savers, we could start to self-educate in investing more. Because a lot of savers will find themselves saving or stashing cash with a low risk tolerance, and that money sitting in the bank is depreciating by like 3 to 4% every year. So that $1 is worth like 96 cents the next year. So as long as we have money that's sitting in the bank, not earning interest, we are losing money. And it seems like the money's safe in the bank. And so that can create the illusion of safety. Whereas the reality is that the money is safe in the bank, losing money in the bank, slowly, but slowly enough that a lot of us, don't really pay attention to it. And that's the reason why we have to also consider investing in our whole strategy of wealth management. We talk a lot more about this in the Fuller Money Mind course, but it can be very common for savers to just save without investing. And if we are in that situation, not all savers will be, but if we are in that situation, then the one money tip we can apply is to start educating more about investing. Beginners investing, about ETFs, about tracker funds, about, like mutual funds that have less than 1% fees, right? Because we never want to pay more than 1% on funds, because otherwise we're not going to make the money back on the percentages, right? We need to beat inflation. We need to have low fees, lower than 1%. And then we need to make sure that our money is going in the direction we want it to and working for us with our stage of life cycle planning, which I talk about more in the course. We have a whole little segment in one of the pillars saying, what is life cycle planning? So if you're a spender, tracking expenses could be useful or helpful to start doing today. And if you're did I say spender? Yeah. If you're a saver, then self-educating could be useful to start doing today. I love subscribing to a blog called The Balance. I think it's thebalance.com. They've got The Balance Small Business. They've got The Balance other things, medium business. I can't remember, but thebalance.com is a really great place to just subscribe. And then we automatically get information that's coming into our inbox that, if we're a saver and we're not very exposed to investing, we might want to read those articles just in our inbox, just a quick click here or there. They have really nice, very easy to read, reasonably short articles at The Balance. You can get longer ones, but they're very, very digestible. So I highly recommend thebalance.com. Also, Get Rich Slowly, where they talk about investing. And I think there's someone called the Barefoot Investor maybe, but I have to look into the details of that. Super famous, and the same like lazy investing style that would suit a lot of us who want to long-term buy and hold, or have a more like safe, secure investing type of style that is really for us to think about and consider, but will be best to take advice on before taking any action. So that's not something that I can recommend going ahead and doing, but educating yourself in terms of like going ahead and investing and stuff. But in terms of educating yourself, I definitely can say that in my experience, that educating pattern has been very useful for me. So getting information straight to my inbox, getting my Instagram curated to follow a number of different investing accounts. You know, I know my investing style. Boo, the hair. I know my investing style. It's quite high risk, um, but it is my own personal style, and I don't follow trends or things like that. I follow just what I'm comfortable losing my money in, essentially. But you know, I'm more tapered or like I can't remember the word where you're like I'm not reserved, but I'm not tentative, but it's just I know strategically where I am comfortable to risk more or risk less. And so if it's just certain areas, I'm like, well, I like the selective spending, like, oh, well, I wouldn't want to make that risk. Like I don't necessarily see that these higher returns are worth it if there is a much higher risk and much higher fees when I could go for something that is really long hold for like 20, 30 years, which is what I personally prefer. Um, and lower fees and lower turnover, but lower returns. But then over 20, 30 years, the returns maybe don't average out, but the risk, like the margins are different. Sorry, I know margins are, but you know, it's different, but not as different as it seems, right? So the gain long term is not necessarily as huge as it may look at first sight. So I am often more comfortable investing in things that are longer hold, rather than really exciting, like super, like I'm gonna get super rich right now. I don't really believe in that, but that's only because I've read so much Warren Buffett, right? So obviously I'm a completely biased, like brainwashed Warren Buffett example when I'm like, oh, just buy and hold really long term and make sure you invest in like things that you believe in and blah blah. So yeah, it's a whole area that's entirely personal and is worth really being sure that we are behind where we put our money and we're willing to try and beat inflation while also making choices that work for us, hopefully with professional advice that's not like usury or leading us astray or like, oh, my friend said it does, like invest in this. You know, that can be great if there's an allocation of money that we say this is a really high risk money that I don't care about losing. Sure, you know, invest in like a llama farm that is making hats for cats. Um, if the numbers make sense, awesome balls. I'm not recommending it, but we have to be very happy with the way we manage, spend, invest our money. That's what I'm saying. So none of this is advice. None of this is ever going to be advice because I'm not a financial advisor and I can't advise on this area. But this is my experience in this place on my journey and just me sharing my thoughts that as a spender, the one money tip that was really helpful for me to start with, just making a step on today that's super, super tiny that I can just fit into like the next 5 minutes, was to just start tracking my spending. Just track what I've already spent today. Track what I maybe spent yesterday. See if I remember all of it. I find it best to do it actually on the day because otherwise the next day I'm so busy with everything else the next day. I'm like, oh gosh, I can't even remember what I did yesterday. Like I have to look at my calendar and see what I did. But for spenders, tracking expenses today is a great starter step. For savers, educating ourselves with like micro education on blogs, on Instagram, on whatever social media we consume. Can we get more micro educating into our feed? And that, for savers, is a great way to expose ourselves to more information that may make us more comfortable on the benefits and the negatives of investing or not investing. So if we are just saving, and not investing at all, then it may also tie into possibilities of not having the information, right? If we knew all this investing stuff and we were like, okay, here's all these different areas that I could invest and I could beat inflation and I could, you know, make my money do more for me, and we still chose not to do it, that's completely different. And that is totally our choice. But I find that people that I talk to who just hold on to money often do so not knowing what they could be doing with it that is also reasonably safe and will lose them less than it just sitting there. So that's something that savers can do. Self-educate themselves. Start to really expose to options that are available. We talk about the overviews of the CABS category in the Money Mind course. I call them the CABS categories because it's a taxi to gets you where you need to go. I like things that are easy to remember. But it's just one of those things that, it's up to us to find what works for us and to consider what might work for us as well. So those two areas for the money for beginners, savers and spenders, spenders and savers. Spenders, maybe try tracking expenses. Savers, maybe try exposing to more education about investing areas. Even just what might work for us in terms of low risk profile, high risk profile, or what's going on in terms of ETFs. We could follow Get Rich Slowly. We could look into thebalance.com, that type of thing. So that's today's broadcast. I hope this has been helpful for somebody out there, a saver or a spender who's ready to take the next steps. My name is Raven, and I am the founder of MoneyMind.global. You can go over to the website and have a look. We're soon going to excitingly have little videos that will be little free snippets on what the courses will be. There'll be in my mind, so there'll be this one main course that will be the 5 pillars of Money Mind that will go over these areas of money mindsets, savings, budgeting, investing, wills and legacy as an overview that I use in my life and from my experience with tips and insights, but no advice. So if you're looking for investing advice or deep dive into different areas, that is not in this course. It is a beginner's intro starter for people who just want to make sure they've got these areas covered as a refresher or as a first step, who have never managed money before or never really had a plan for managing their money. So, deep dive into investing or multi-jurisdictional wills or things like that are not in this course. It's a beginner's basics. Separately from this main course, the 5 pillars course, I hope to be able to talk to experts longer term and get little tiny pain point courses that would be about $37 US. And you could do this small course that will guide you through like checklist of writing a will, or, like how to figure out what budget works for you. And 2 more exciting things that are on the cards that I'm super excited about. I'll quickly run through them. PDFs to expense track for spenders or for savers or anybody who wants to do their daily expense tracking and their monthly planning for their expenses. So the first thing that we would do if we were a spender would want to track our expenses. And that is a little PDF that I'm getting created for all of you so that you can download this PDF. It will be included in the Money Mind course. And there will be this PDF, which I'll run through at another point. There'll be this PDF that can we print out, or we can just do it fillable for sustainability purposes. So we fill out our daily expenses, and then it has the tally at the end, and also whether it's a want or a need. So we start to be able to get a little bit more clarity on that site on our spending. And then we'll also have a monthly planner. So there will be next month's expenses, and this is a little more advanced. So this is a little bit later when you've been budgeting for a little while. Monthly expenses. What are next month's expenses? What do I really need and want? And just to do it and see how much we end up doing that is in the budget that we've projected and how much is not, without judgment, just to track it and have it there. So those are 2 PDFs that are going to be available. And the other exciting thing is that I'm looking into now getting fillable forms so we can do little fun quizzes on what budget style may suit you. Or are you more of a spender or saver type? These types of quizzes so that we can get to know ourselves a little bit better and get eyes on our minds just a little bit more. Are we fixed or growth mindsets? So I'll have quizzes that are also there available for people to do on the website. Some will be free and some will be included in the course to help us really get through this process together as smoothly as possible. So you don't have to try and just figure it out yourself. This will take me time, but the PDFs are in building now. So I'm super excited. And thank you so much for joining, everyone. Please stay tuned. Subscribe to moneymind.global for more updates. And I promise that when I have time and I have launched the course, soft launched the course, I will be updating things more regularly. But it's just me for now. So I'm trying to do everything. Thank you so much for joining, everyone who's watching here, who's watching on replay, who's watching on any platform. I'm Raven, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.